you want to be healthier, yet you just don't know what to do? All these shows telling you this and that, but nothing seems to work. Well, listen close. Golden State Media Concepts has got something great for you. The Health and Wellness Podcast dedicated to workout trends, healthy eating habits, diet, and everything about healthy living. Join us in our banters as we help you not just live life to the fullest, but live it to the healthiest.
Hello and welcome to the GSMC Health and Wellness Podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Podcast Network. I'm your host, Arianne, and today I'm going to be talking to you guys about some yoga poses and core workouts that will benefit your everyday life. Now, the reason why I chose to talk about yoga poses, 5 specifically, is because me personally, I've been in a job where I've had to do a lot of lifting and pushing and upper body movement. And I know a lot of people that are in jobs that they do a lot of upper body movement. My sister also being one of them. And these 5 yoga poses that I'm going to talk about here first are supposed to be yoga poses that will improve your technique for heavy lifting. So even if you're like in the strongman competition or whatever like that, and you have to like do a deadlift and lift it over your head, or you just in general like to lift weights and you lift heavy weights over your head, this will benefit you in your posture and lifting, motion, stuff like that. So that's why I kind of chose to talk about that, just because I can relate to certain injury or positions that don't work so well. So, like I said, these 5 yoga poses are going to help improve overhead lifting techniques, your postural alignment, and also protect your shoulders and back from any injury. Because I know if you're lifting or pushing or doing anything in an improper manner for your body, it could cause serious injury, or even just like over a period of time, if you repeatedly do something in the incorrect way for your body, it just has a toll on your body, and in the future, it's going to affect whatever you're doing. Like if it's your arms, in the future, it might affect your arm movement, your back, your legs, whatever the case is. So first, I want to just say that yoga kind of started as a practice to find harmony and balance between the mind and body. If anybody did not know that, it's kind of what it started out as. But it has since evolved to many different branches, and in some way or another can benefit anybody and everybody who practices on a regular basis, practices doing yoga, or has a general yoga routine. So I'd also like to say that there are many health benefits of yoga beyond the simple misconception that it's just a glorified stretching routine. That's what a lot of people, I feel like, think it is. Because you're just like doing a lot of muscle stretches and movements, when it has so much more to do with that. So like I said, regular practice can help, get you in understand a little bit more about how it can benefit you. Now, the ones that I'm going to be talking about is, like I said before, are going to improve strength and flexibility for your muscles. And yoga also targets your cardiovascular system. So it's a good, nice, heart healthy workout also. I've heard that it also helps lower your blood pressure and cholesterol. So that's 2 bonuses right there. Also, if you are limited in movement, some yoga might help with, simple cholesterol and blood pressure if you have that issue. I'd like to say that doing these 5 yoga poses regularly, again, will help improve overhead lifting by helping your shoulder blades and shoulder joints rotate more smoothly, specifically your, what are they called? Your ball and socket joints for your shoulder, and your, what are they called? The shoulder blades back there. Yeah. So this will help the process there move smoothly without any interruption, and it will also help prevent your bicep tendons, maybe tricep tendons, help from them getting pinched or inflamed in some kind of way from improper movement. So doing these 5 yoga poses can help benefit you in that area, specifically, like I said, again, for overhead lifting. If you're lifting anything over your head, squatting, stuff like that, because if you're lifting stuff over your head, you have to have a strong foundation, a strong balance through your hips. That's why I mentioned squatting. So the first pose that I'm going to talk about, like I said, there's 5. So the first one is the chair pose. Now there's 2 ways to do the chair pose. The chair pose, you can have your arms straight out in front of you, or you can have your arms up towards the ceiling. Now this one calls for your arms to be up towards the ceiling. And chair pose is basically like you're standing and you go into a squat, keep your back straight. You go into a squat like you're about to sit in a chair, but you're not completely sitting in the chair. Like you're not parallel with the ground in any way. You're almost to the point where you're just about to sit down, and you hold that pose for about 30 seconds where your knees and ankles are parallel, but your butt is about to sit in a chair, and then your back is nice and straight. Your arms are over your head. That would be the chair pose. Now, the chair pose is beneficial because it activates your scapular muscles, and it helps with balance and strength through your hips, legs, and feet. Because with that bend at your hips, as if you're about to sit down, and with your legs and feet, your knees and ankles aligned, shoulder width or hip width apart. I think they want it to be hip width apart. It does help with balance there, and then the stretch with your arms up through your scapular muscles there. The next pose, when I speak about each of these, I'll tell you what they are, how to do them, and the benefit in it. So that way you guys get all 3 of those. Okay, the next pose is downward facing dog. Now, downward facing dog is if you are standing up straight and you bend over, but your body is in like this upside down V shape. So your hands are flat on the ground, and then your feet would ideally be flat on the ground, but your ankles can be lifted if you can't keep them flat. I personally cannot keep my feet flat because that definitely stretches your hamstrings and your calf muscles. So until you get those nice and flexible and stretched, then your heels probably won't stay completely flat on the ground during the downward dog pose, but it helps if you get to that point. Anyway, downward facing dog is you're in like this V shape to where your feet are planted and your hands are planted and your face is down towards your mat. And this benefits, this is actually beneficial because it activates the overhead lifting muscles, because you're putting that pressure on your arms through, from your upper body down through your arms. And also, it activates, excuse me, stumbling over my words here. It activates the lower traps. So that, I believe that's, the top of your back down to the middle of your spine. So it activates those, because when you're in that pose, you'll be able to feel your back muscles helping with stabilizing you there. And also with the bend at the hip, it increases the flexibility there also. So if you can't bend over, standing up and touch your toes, that's okay, because you're going to be a good, your hands will be a good, I want to say 2.5 feet away from your feet in that upside down V shape during the downward facing dog pose. The next pose is upward facing dog. This one, if any of you know yoga, it's kind of like the cobra pose, but is slightly different. Upward facing dog is as if you are laying on your stomach and you kind of lift your body up. You keep your arms, your wrists and arms straight, and your wrists are directly under your shoulders. And so you're lifting yourself, so your back is kind of arched upward toward the ceiling, and your face will be up facing towards the ceiling. So that's upward facing dog. The difference between upward facing dog and cobra is the angle of your arms, because upward facing dog, your arms are parallel or perpendicular to the ground, and your wrists and shoulders are aligned. Your shoulders are dropped. Try and keep your shoulders dropped. You don't want them crunched up towards your ears. Keep them dropped a little bit, and then your head back and up facing toward the ceiling. Now that benefits you in the way it activates your overhead lifting muscles, your lower traps, because you will definitely be feeling that in your traps. Also in your triceps. You'll be able to feel that in your arms, your triceps, shoulder muscles, lower traps, and it increases, let's see what else. Yeah, you'll be able to feel it in your arms, and it helps stretch the abdominal muscles. You'll be able to feel that nice stretch there, and kind of a crunch situation through your lower back. If you don't already feel that. This activates and helps stabilize your muscles and shoulder joints also, and it improves your structural alignment, because a lot of people stand kind of slightly hunched over, and this kind of gives your back that backward arc. You know what I mean? To where it's like a nice stretch as if you're like leaning backwards, and that definitely feels nice once in a while. I'm going to go ahead and take a break and then continue talking about upward facing dog. And then I'll let you guys know what the other two poses are. And we'll move on to other things that help with overhead lifting.
Still on the search of that one true love? On the limbo in this crazy world of dating, marriage, relationships? Well, listen to the Golden State Media Concepts Relationship Podcast, your one-stop podcast for everything about relationships.
Welcome back to the GSMC Health and Wellness Podcast. I'm going to continue talking about the upward facing dog pose. I wanted to mention that while doing this pose, when you keep your hands firmly on the ground and it's like I said before, keeping your shoulders dropped. By doing that, this helps keep your shoulder blades down and keep them kind of contracted in a sense, because with your shoulders dropped, it kind of brings your shoulder blades together towards the back while you're in this pose. This also opens up the chest area too, because if you're ever doing any heavy lifting, your arms are probably either going straight up over your head or in front of you slightly. So this opens up the chest to where those muscles don't stay, cramped and contracted a lot of the time when your arms are over your head and slightly turned in. So make a mental note on trying to keep your chest open, even like while sitting or standing. Shoulders down and slightly turned out, like as if you had your hands down by your side. Just turn your thumbs outwards and you will feel that slight open up in your shoulders. That will definitely benefit your posture in general. So you want to keep your chest open and flexible there too. We're going to move on to our next pose, which is the cobra pose. And I mentioned this right before I was going to go into downward facing dog. Cobra pose is almost the exact same thing as upward facing dog, except your arms are slightly forward. you're slightly forward. So if you can picture a cobra and how like when their head is like up and it's all open, it's slightly leaned forward. So if you have your arms slightly forward, your chest is still open, but your face, instead of being up toward the ceiling like in upward facing dog, it's straight, it's facing forward, straight out in front of you. So you're looking directly out. So that's the difference between upward facing dog and the cobra pose. Same benefits here, except when your neck and head isn't up towards the ceiling and it's giving you that full abdominal stretch, it's more so giving you a stretch in your arms and back instead of like that full abdominal stretch like upward facing dog. The benefits here are your pec muscles, your pectorals, because it's like, again, it's opening up more. Your arms are slightly forward, so you can feel kind of like the stretch in your upper pecs, I would say mostly. I've done this pose plenty of times, and you can definitely feel it in your upper pecs, like instead of like the center more between your ribs area. But that is a good one for your arms and the stretch on your upper chest. And the last pose in these 5 that I'm talking about that help improve your upper or overhead lifting techniques is Warrior 3 pose. There's 3 different warrior poses, and we're just going to talk about Warrior 3 pose. Now, Warrior 3 is you're standing on one leg and you're facing forward. Your other leg, and you can rotate these, switch off standing on each leg, but you're standing on one leg, your other leg is out behind you parallel with the ground, okay? And then your upper body, you're going to lean forward to where your upper body is parallel with the ground, so you kind of look like this T with your upper body and your back leg all parallel with the ground while you're standing on the one leg. And then your arms are either going to be down by your side, out like a T, or on your hips, like, you know, like the Peter Pan stance, like when he has his hands on his hips. So you can either keep them out for balance, put them on your hips, or just leave them down by your sides. Now that's going to be the Warrior 3 stance. And this stance benefits you because it's a unilateral stability. It helps with like your balance on one leg. And then when you switch, you'll get the balance on the other leg. Balance is important, especially if you're lifting heavy items, because your foundation, you want it to be solid and immovable. You don't want to be like off balance if you're lifting heavy stuff, because especially over your head, because that could cause you to fall over, cause an injury in your arms or lower back, hip, whatever the case. But your foundation and your stability in your hips, legs, and feet is very important when you're lifting heavy items. Please remember that. I had a few injuries when I worked at a box factory prior to moving to California, and just, you know, moving a lot of heavy boxes and lifting, just moving stuff, that's when you get injured in your lower back and your arms if you don't practice proper techniques or make sure your muscles and ligaments are flexible. You got to keep yourself safe, because you don't want to be like super old and then just be in all kinds of pain. I mean, I guess that comes with age in general, but if you can limit that, please do. I want to say that when you're doing each of these poses, see if you can do them up to like 30 seconds each. Chair pose, downward facing dog, upward facing dog, cobra, Warrior 3. Do about 30 seconds, maybe 2 to 3 times. Especially Warrior 3, you're going to switch off legs. And chair pose, that might be kind of a hard one. I don't know if any of you have ever experienced doing wall sits, but it's almost the same thing without the wall. And you don't go down very far. But 30 seconds is a pretty good hold for each of those. And just make sure that just check one time. Like if you work or do any heavy lifting, heavy overhead lifting, or work in an environment where you do have to lift stuff over your head, like boxes, put them up on shelves, stuff like that, even around the house, if doing these 5 poses even before or a couple days before a few times, if that helps just kind of smooth out the movement in your shoulder joint, the ball and socket joint in your shoulder, and in your shoulder blades, if that's a smoother motion in general, because I know that, those can get kind of stiff if you don't do a lot of, upper arm movements, anything like that. So just a heads up there. And that is it for our 5 yoga poses to improve heavy lifting. My next topic I'm going to talk to you guys about is 10 body weight core exercises. I like this because there are 0 weights involved. You do not have to have weights to do this. If you're in an open area or you just have some time, you're using your body weight and gravity as your other tool. So no weights involved. You might want like a yoga mat or, something on your hands to protect your hands, because you will be like touching the ground or the floor or whatever. So maybe some kind of like workout gloves or something like that might protect your hands a little bit. But these core exercises are awesome. Core meaning your abs. If you don't know what I'm talking about when I say core, I'm just talking about abs. And keeping your core strong is very important. I have a routine personally that I do like 20 minutes a day, and it's strictly a core workout. Because I have the routine that I do, it kind of it mostly benefits your core, but it, has a little bit of leg and arms involved. But core workout is important. You want to be strong in your core. Now, don't do more than you can handle. When I talk about these 10 exercises, you don't want to overexert yourself, because you could think that, I can do like 15 of those. Don't. Just start out with maybe like 3 to 5 just to start out with, and kind of build yourself up to where you feel like you can do more, or even later, maybe even add some weights to these, like ankle weights or those ones that you wrap around your wrist and ankles. You can, try some of those, but don't overexert yourself. These are just kind of just body weight in general core exercises. So to get started, I am going to tell you about the first exercise is called a burpee. I don't know if any of you heard of that. I know a lot of football players and sports athletes know what burpees are. So what you basically do is you stand up straight, but then you go into a squat, and then you have you put your hands on the ground, and you kind of kick your feet backwards so you're in the push-up position. You do a push-up, bring your legs back up towards your chest so you're in that beginning squat with your hands on your knees position, and then you jump up towards the sky with your hands up towards the sky. So that whole motion right there is 1 rep. So if you want to do like 3 to 5 burpees, that's great. They did have like a super extra type of burpee where you do like a push up and jump, like clap your hands or something. Ain't nobody trying to do all that. Just do the simple one to start out with, and try that. I'm going to take a quick break, and then I will continue with the other 9 body weight core exercises.
Tired of searching the vast jungle of podcasts? Now listen close and hear this out. There's a podcast network that covers just about everything that you've been searching. The Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network is here. Nothing less than a podcast bliss with endless hours of podcast coverage. From news, sports, music, fashion, cooking, entertainment, fantasy, football, and so much more. So stop lurking around and go straight out to the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network. Guaranteed to fill that podcast itch. Whatever it may be. Visit us at www.gsmcpodcast.com. Follow us on Facebook and Twitter, and download us on iTunes, SoundCloud, and Google Play.
Welcome back, everybody, to the GSMC Health and Wellness Podcast. I'm going to keep moving on with the 10 body weight core exercises. We just talked about what a burpee was. A lot of you athletes all out there already know what a burpee is. I kind of broke it down for those of you who don't know what a burpee is. The next one on the list is called a jackknife sit-up. And a jackknife sit-up is when you are laying flat on your back, arms over your head, legs straight out, and you do a sit-up. But when you're doing this sit-up, you're bringing your arms up and your legs up toward the ceiling, and you're going to try and touch, put your body in like this V shape. So it's a regular V shape, like your feet are toward the ceiling, your hands and arms are towards the ceiling. So your body's in this V shape. Now, when you do that sit-up, and you go back down, that will be 1 rep. So these are pretty hard. I can't even really do them that well, so I choose not to. I do other things, but the jackknife sit-up is definitely one that benefits your core and also your legs, because you'll feel your leg muscles contract, specifically like your quads and stuff like that, to try and bring your legs up. The next one is called mountain climbers. Mountain climbers are what you do. How you do these is you kind of lean forward like you're about to be in the push-up position, but instead of doing a push-up, your arms are extended, and you bring one of your legs up towards your chest and then back, and then you bring the other leg up towards your chest as if you're climbing a mountain, or like running almost, but in place. You're just moving your legs. So those are mountain climbers. Do a few of those. Like I said, don't overexert yourself. Only do as much as you can handle. Don't say, oh, I could do like 50 of these don't do that. Just start off slow and, build your way up. So mountain climbers, I like mountain climbers. They're a really good exercise. They don't just help your core. They help all of your core. I'm talking about like your abs, your obliques, and then holding yourself up. That's a benefit for your arms too. So moving on to the next one is called the cocoon. I've never really heard of this, or I've done it, but I didn't know it was called a cocoon. So what you do is you lay on your back with your legs and arms over your head, and then simultaneously bring both legs up towards your chest, and your arms like wrapping around your legs, like you're giving your legs a hug almost. So you're like in the super fetal position, step on your back, right? And then you bring your legs back out, laying down on your back, and your arms back over your head. So bringing them all together and then releasing them all. That would be like 1 rep on that. The next one is called the oblique crunch. Nobody likes crunches. Oblique crunch. There's a lot of different exercises you can do with obliques, but they had this one on the list. So with the oblique crunch, what you're going to do is lay on your back with your legs at a 90-degree angle, hands behind your head. You're going to go up into a crunch, but instead of like just doing a regular crunch, what you're going to do is twist your body so your opposite elbow meets the opposite knee. So like if you're going to twist right, your left elbow is going to touch or try to reach your right knee, and then you'll go back down and then do the opposite. So when you come up, the opposite would be your right elbow towards your left knee, so that you're having like a little twist motion in your crunch there, and that will help your obliques in that sense. The next one is called the hanging leg raise. My daughter did gymnastics, so they call this the L, they call it a L hold, because your body's shaped like a L. Now what you're going to do is like hang from a pull-up bar. You can even do this outside on like monkey bars or anything like that. Any bar you have, hang from the bar. And what you're going to do is make sure your hands are about shoulder width apart, and you're hanging there, and you bring both of your legs up parallel, try to make them parallel with the ground. So in that sense, you can see why it's called an L hold, because your body is shaped like an L. And hold that for about 2 seconds if you can. And again, only do what you can handle, because that is a tough one. You'll definitely feel that in your lower abs. I've tried that. It's very tough. The next one is the plank. I feel like everybody knows what a plank is. You're in a push-up position, but you're instead of leaning on your hands, you're on your elbows in that sense. Hold that for a couple of seconds, for as many seconds as you can. I've seen people do this for like 2 to 5 minutes, but you don't have to do that. 30 seconds, a couple of times is good enough. Planks are tough, people. The next one is called a dead bug. I've heard this called many different things, but it's called the dead bug in this article. It's when you're laying on your back, your legs up at a 90 degree angle. So you're on your back and your legs, instead of having your legs all the way facing up towards the ceiling, you bend at the knees. So your knees and your legs make that 90 degree angle as you're laying on your back. And your arms are up toward the ceiling, are facing straight up toward the ceiling. Now what you're going to do is straighten one leg out without it touching the floor, probably like 6 to 8 inches off the floor, and then bring it back. And then you're going to rotate legs. So your arms straight up, which kind of brings your shoulder blades off the ground a little bit. And that will be like a slight crunch. But then with your legs holding out, that's gonna really work your lower abs there. Our next one is called the reverse crunch. I like doing the reverse crunch because it's not so strenuous on your kind of like trying to lift yourself up a whole lot. What you do is you lay on your back, you have your arms down by your sides for support, and your legs are straight out. So you'll bring your legs up towards the ceiling and then lift and kind of bend at the hip, but you're going to lift like your butt off the ground and in an upward motion towards the ceiling. So you're going to like bend at your waist almost. And then you drop that down and then drop your legs down back to the floor. That would be one reverse crunch. Those are tough. I like to do like 10 of those because that's kind of mixed into my personal routine that I do in the morning. And I really like them because they're a whole lot easier, but you can also feel the effect in your abs with that one. The last one on the list is called the seated scissor kick. Now, the seated scissor kick is when you lay on your back with your arms by your sides, and you'll lift your legs. They'll be straight down also, but then you'll lift them about 6 inches off the floor, and you'll open your legs like they're in a V shape, and you'll crisscross them like scissors. So open and close, crisscross them, and alternating one on top of the other like scissors. Do that. I wouldn't say do that for a certain amount of seconds, but maybe like do like a 5-set crisscross. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. You know what I mean? And then take a break. That will be enough. I mean, if you do like 3 sets of 5, that's cool. And you'll definitely feel that the next day in your lower abs. That's actually like a lower ab kind of middle of your abs kind of workout there. But anyway, with those 10 body weight core exercises, that will definitely strengthen your core. And it also helps for any of you looking to have that, nice tight stomach for the beach, what they call that, a beach bod now, where your core just is super sexy, nice and flat. I don't know if it'll technically give you them washboard abs, but it'll be nice and strong. And then what we talked about earlier with the 5 yoga poses to improve your heavy lifting. Yoga's excellent if in general you're just trying to keep your muscles flexible and stretched out, because any weightlifting you do, you want to stretch your muscles after that, because it definitely helps. You don't want stiff muscles in any kind of lifting or exercising you're doing. So with that, I want to say thank you for listening to the GSMC Health and Wellness Podcast. Again, I'm your host, Arianne, and I hope to have you listen next time.
You've been listening to the Golden State Media Concepts Health and Wellness Podcast, part of the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network. You can find this show and others like it at www.gsmcpodcast.com. Download our podcast on iTunes, Stitcher, SoundCloud, and Google Play. Just type in GSMC to find all the shows from the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network, from movies to music, from sports to entertainment, and even weird news. You can also follow us on Twitter and on Facebook. Thank you, and we hope you have enjoyed today's program.